should we be using that music? What's up, guys? Compound Coalition. I'm here with Kerry Brown. Name of your company is?
Strong Roots Resources.
StrongRootsResources.com.
Mm-hmm.
And on Instagram and Facebook and everywhere?
Yes, Instagram account, Facebook account, and we have a Telegram group as well.
Cool. On YouTube also?
Yes.
Awesome. Perfect. So what do you do?
Simply, I teach people about the land, and that kind of shows up in a variety of ways. I started as part of the urban homesteading thing, and a lot of my my bread and butter is still designing small properties, suburban and urban properties for maximum food production, and I call it ecological landscaping. So we're incorporating the principles of permaculture, but we're also we're making space for the wildlife to do their thing too, where appropriate. And as that has grown, as I visited more properties, I found that people were pointing to trees and plants and flowers and things and saying, "Hey, what's that?"
Mm-hmm.
So now as much as design, I teach people what they already have there.
Cool.
Lead foraging classes and that sort of thing.
So you said include the wildlife. Do we not need to discourage wildlife in some of these instances, or is it all?
So it's all about striking balance. So sometimes yes, and obviously you don't want deer ripping out thousands of dollars of your fruit trees,
Or sheep.
Or sheep or dogs, or
Yeah.
yeah. Often in the urban and suburban setting, it's actually loose dogs that do more damage than anything.
Which is weird. You wouldn't think dogs, man, but my dogs destroyed a ton of shit we put in.
Yeah.
And then you saw your install?
I saw mine. I saw a peach tree that was unfortunately out of the ground.
So I think that was the big dog before I moved him. And then the sheep, when it was snowing, the sheep ate those figs really but the figs will come back. The figs will sprout back, but they did pull some of that stuff. And I just hate putting in T-posts, like cattle panels would fix it, some cattle panel zip ties.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that would alleviate that and give those things a foothold. Man, that grass is going to grow up in there,
mm-hmm.
and we're going to have to, cut it down or something.
Yeah. Around here, that Bermuda grass is almost impossible to control. You can out-compete it with some degree with more comfrey. If you wanted to load a ton of comfrey cuttings in there, that'll help you.
Cool. So what are you doing out here today?
So I have started putting together a foraging class for the next Self-Reliance Festival. So I pretty much wandered around in the woods, kind of the perimeter of the property here, this kind of adjacent lot to the west, the back here where the ponds are, and just took a bunch of photos, took a bunch of notes, and I just kind of mentally work out, okay, we'll go this way. I'm going to kind of show these things. Also knowing that in April, there's going to be more stuff. And some of the stuff I found today may actually not be there. So I kind of front load. I find plenty of everything
mm-hmm.
so that we can fill the time and just have plenty of stuff to show.
So in this class, what are they going to walk away with when they take this class from you? What do they get?
So they're going to be shown easily probably 3 dozen species. That's probably on the conservative side. They will get I'm not sure if I'm going to do printouts or an email document or maybe both. Probably both. So they'll have a document that actually gives a photo of everything that we found, so they don't have to try to remember everything. A link to a website that is called Plants for a Future. It's pfaf.org, and that is a website where you can put in pretty much anything that grows here in North America, and it will give you a very kind of thorough breakdown of what's it for, kind of like ancestral uses for it, what kind of habitat you find it in, tons and tons of information. And it's an open document, so people are constantly adding to it and improving it. So they will have a follow-up document that will have clickable links where they can, that way when they're home or they're somewhere else and they see it, they're like, oh yeah, that I recognize that. What is it? They can check that photo, they can check that link, and just expand their knowledge.
That's pretty cool. What's the name of that website?
pfaf.org.
Will you text that to Amanda? Send that to her.
That stands for Plants for a Future, and they also publish books to help support the cost of running the website. And they're like food forest design or woodland gardening books. I've got most of them. They're amazing, beautiful books.
So while you say food forest design, you do a lot of that, right?
Yep.
So a client could come to you and go, hey, I just want this to look pretty back here and be useful.
Mm-hmm.
Or they could go, I want this to grow and sustain, and I want to put as little input as possible. Or I want more food, and I know that takes more input. They can have that, and you can do either one of those for them, right?
I can go either way.
And you'll come out and tag stuff and go, okay, do this here, 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 and here,
Mm-hmm.
and that has a lower cost. Or you pay me for my time, and I'll come in and actually do the entire installation for you. You do both.
Yep. Yeah, I do installs as well, and I've pretty much steered the business to where, in terms of my labor, it's those kind of installations. I don't really do any typical landscaping anymore because there's enough of demand to go for that.
And how far will you travel?
Well, I came out here back in October, so I traveled 4 hours.
Okay.
It's kind of like, if the price is right.
But you're not going to California.
Nah, I probably want to keep it pretty Tennessee centric. I don't like to travel too far out of our growing zone because I've lived my entire life here. So this is my specialty, is where we are. I would start to get a little out of my league if we get, a couple of zones colder or warmer.
Plus, I would think we draw a lot of people, like between Nicole and what she's doing and Gorham and our stuff. We have audiences that definitely overlap, but we all have audiences that are completely don't overlap as well. So I would think that you guys could stay completely busy just being in Tennessee with the amount of influx of people coming in.
Yeah.
And buying properties, and especially buying properties that have never been set up for permaculture. There's a lot of, stuff used to be farmland, so you've just got a flat, bare surface, and we can see what that does and how to make that go and work everything within itself. And then there's stuff that's just completely wild forest too, and then what do we do with that? So
Yeah.
I've seen your installations. You've been here. You just did when did we do that? Just maybe
It was like middle of October.
Yeah, a few months ago. Did a lot of work here. So people listening to this, if this is on your radar and you want this, you can get a consultation from him. You do some stuff also from Google Earth. You can kind of look at it ahead of time.
Yeah, I'll pull up maps and pull up topo maps and that kind of thing to kind of get the bones of the land even before I'm on site.
Cool. And you said you fodder systems and stuff like that also.
Yeah,
and
we can set those up. I'm actually out on this end of the state because I had a consult over near McKenzie, Tennessee, a little west of here, and it's looking like we're gonna fold everything into. There's gonna be kind of like the your typical vegetable garden with an adjacent food forest and a fodder tree system because they want to do rabbits and chickens eventually. And so we're just going to go ahead and kind of place mark.
So tell us about that survey you just did. They bought this property recently?
April, yeah.
And then they move here from somewhere else?
Yep. Came over from Colorado.
Have they ever done any of this stuff?
Not really. Not as far as they let me know. They are a small kind of like older family where they're in a situation where they're caring for a parent inside the home. So they're home all the time. And of course, caregiving takes time, but then you also have time available to go out and work on the property. And it's one of these where it's not huge. It's a little under an acre, but the layout is good and the aspect is good. And it's not wooded. So we've got lots of sun, and it's in a lot of ways kind of a blank slate currently.
So do you want trees in there? Are you going to put trees in?
Yeah.
What do you think you're going to put in? What are your big trees you want?
Around here, we do really well with cherry trees, and most of the stone fruits. With peaches can be a mixed bag, kind of depends. But like your plums and both sour and sweet cherries do well. The Asian pears, have become a really big fan of Asian pears because they don't seem to have any issue with diseases, and they're a nice winter storage pear. So you take them off the tree when they're still as hard as a baseball. They ripen over the wintertime in like a root cellar or basement or wherever. We'll throw those in. To some extent, I try to do stuff that the customer wants as long as it's going to work. I'm not going to tell them to buy something that I know won't do well. Arkansas black apples seem to do well and not have the issue with the rust.
So what is that issue with the rust? Does it come from something else? It comes because of cedar trees?
Yeah, it's a fungus. So you'll see this on the cedar trees. It's called a gall, and it's kind of an orangish red, and depending on when you find it, it looks, no joke, like an alien coming
Looks like
off
an
a
octopus. Yeah.
It does. It's
Yeah.
like all kind of, it's got tentacles, and it's kind of soft and gooey. And then later they harden, and they actually look like a brain.
Yep.
What it looks like to me.
Like a dried up, shriveled up prune or something.
And that's basically a fungus that the apple trees will get. And it can, in some cases, it can just cause some spots, and it doesn't really affect the health of the tree, but it can make the tree sick and eventually kill it.
So we have apples. I've probably got a dozen or so here on the property, and they put on every year. I'm like, okay, this is the year we're going to get apples, but they always implode. The apple never comes to fruition where we can actually use the apple.
Like, do they rot while they're still on the
tree? Yeah, before they get to full size. And then the co-op's like, oh, you just have to spray it with this chemical, and I've never wanted to do that.
Yeah.
And then people like, you got to get rid of the cedar. So we were going to cut down all the cedar trees. But then I'd heard also people saying, like, it doesn't matter if you cut all the cedars down on this property, a cedar from a half mile away will still affect it.
It carries on the wind.
So
yeah, and it's, and it's probably in the soil. I haven't tested this out myself, but another person recently was telling me about using whey from goat's milk as a treatment for rot on the tree, like fruit rot before it drops or early fruit drop. So
is there something now with the peaches? We always get a worm. Does that come from something that was in the ground from the year before, or what is that coming from?
I think so. It can happen. That's one of the reasons why they tell you to try to not let rotten peaches stay on the ground, because it kind of feeds that worm. I can't remember what larva that actually is from. It's got to be some kind of fly. My peach trees, when we had our place in the city, would get it, and I kind of just cut around it.
That's what I do. I just
it didn't really bother me that much.
Yeah, we've had years where we'll get, I mean, there's peaches up the drive. I'll bet there's 12 of them coming in the approach. And we've gotten multiple 5-gallon buckets off of those things some years. Yeah. And then like the last 3 years, it'll do what it's doing right now. It'll be super cold. It will get really warm for a couple of weeks. They'll put flowers on, and then they'll come off, and then we won't get hardly any peaches because that tree already woke up and then went back to sleep again.
Yeah, and it's just not practical to try to cover stuff when you have a bunch of things. I continue, one of my biggest goals for the business is to continue to find local growers who are actually working on stuff that is agreeable to our kind of bizarre climate and these cold snaps and everything we have. And I actually met a guy randomly. I had some sassafras trees for sale on Facebook Marketplace, and he's over near Athens, and I'm in Knoxville, and we met up, and he runs a little nursery, and he's doing all kinds of little experiments on getting trees to, but it's always early bloom. That's the issue for us mostly. So that's like one more resource that I've got in the pocket now.
That's cool. Fig trees and blueberries do really well here.
Yeah. You've got some wild blueberries.
I do. Where's
back
that?
There. So you take that path that runs, you got your upper pond, take that path to the west, and as you go under that chain that they've got over there, they're on your right, like on the side of the road.
Does it look like a real blueberry?
I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah. Pretty big too. I mean, 8-9 feet tall.
Really?
Yeah.
We brought in a bunch of, from Bartlett, Tennessee on Craigslist. There's a guy selling blueberries, and we drove out there right before you get into Memphis. And he had he had a big backyard, and he had thousands of blueberries, and he was propagating them, and he's telling us about these rabbit eye blueberries, and he's got like Orgasm, Climax, Ecstasy. There was 5 that we got from him.
Everybody's going to remember those names.
Yeah, for sure. I do. I don't remember anything but those names. And he was going on about Georgia College, and here's all the papers, and he had all kinds of publications, and he had a farm where he was growing these things, and he's just taking cuttings and puts them in, damp soil, and he's got this mist system. Every hour sprays for, I think he said 5 minutes or something.
Yeah.
And he had 1-gallon pots and 3-gallon pots, and we bought 72 of them, and we put those things in, and we didn't know nothing about what we were doing. We just brought in an excavator, just scrape through rock, and that whole run up that fence line are those ones we put in. And then we put some out here, and these ones are pretty miserable.
Yeah.
But those things, man, we get 5-gallon buckets worth of blueberries off of those also now, and they've been in the ground for probably 4 or 5 years now.
Cool. Yeah, I was looking at them. They look pretty good. They're up there with those pine trees, so you're going to have a little bit more of an acidic soil, which they like. And they like some dappled shade too. They don't like to be out in the full sun and just get baked. So if you can kind of tuck them under trees like that, that's where I find when I find wild ones, you'll find them on edges of trails. If you go hiking in the Cumberlands or in the Smokies, they're always at the trail edge.
See that frost grape up there trellising on the fence?
Yeah.
That just showed up on its own. There's 2 of them there now.
Nice.
And I was going to cut them down, and Nick Ferguson goes, "Oh man, don't cut those down. Just cut it off and splice what you want into that rootstock."
Yeah.
So I've left it there. I've never spliced anything into it, but that stalk's been in the ground for probably 4 years now, and it does, man. It comes on and gets really big in the summer. It's climbing up into that pine tree there now.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a customer just down the road from our place, and she's got these amazing muscadines, the Scuppernong variety, which is kind of the Tennessee variety, and she doesn't remember planting them. She thinks maybe a bird planted them, or maybe she threw some seeds out in her compost or something.
So we have a lot of wild muscadines around. Yeah.
You've got them. We found them back in back at the SRF, back
really?
here in the camping area.
Okay.
Far corner.
So what are they good for? Just wine for the most part?
Yeah. I mean, they're just good. They're really meaty.
So the whole back fence line, do they have a sweet flavor or are they bitter?
I think they're sweet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the whole back fence line back there is all blackberries, that whole thing there. And it comes on super heavy, man. If we had bears around here, they would definitely be there. And here, blackberries will just show up everywhere. When we came on the property, you couldn't walk 5 feet without getting caught up in something with a thorn. And it was super heavy in blackberries. They really like that crappy soil out there.
Yeah, blackberries are always anytime the soil's been disturbed, that's one of the first things to show up. I think it was maybe Joel Salatin who said, if you have thorns of any type, that's usually a sign of disturbed soil. And I think that's nature's way that wants to hold the soil down, so it puts out the stuff that we only want to get into that if we have a machine. We don't want to get in there with a machete because it's misery.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. This was all a gravel pit, so we had zero soil. The soil that's here now, when I say I mean literally thousands of dump trucks of wood chips have been down.
Sure.
And then we unrolled hay, and then we had 23 goats up there, and now we have some actual soil, but I still don't have good grass. You can see the grass on the top paddock where we ran the sheep and tractors up there, and then we had the rabbit. So there's some actual grasses growing there now. The ground is covered. But like in the back here, there's a little bit of grass there, but if you cut it short, you'll see that there's still these huge patches of just chert.
Yeah.
That's what we were doing, was that red clay rock soil out of here.
Yeah.
That's what we export from here.
Yeah, for sure. That is kind of common down here where we're kind of close to the river. It's just the geology. But you guys did exactly the right thing. That's what you have to do. You basically have to speed up what nature does on its own. That's how we help it out best, is just keep throwing that carbon down.
Did the FDA recently change our growing zones everywhere?
I heard about that, but I haven't really dug into it too deeply. It makes you wonder after a couple of weeks ago. It's not normal for us to hit 0 degrees, especially sustained for that many days in a row and that much snow.
So I thought they migrated us back, but when I looked it up, they actually took us from a 6.5 to a 7. So we are now at growing zone 7, which means we should be able to grow warmer stuff.
Right.
For people listening that aren't aware. But we just had cold, sustained and longer.
Yeah. It's
almost like, hey, plant this stuff here. We know it's not going to succeed and you guys will starve. That's the conspiracy theorist in me.
I hear you there. I think it's so variable. We get weirded out when the weather does strange things, but I kind of think of it as, that I think the Earth is it's an incredibly complex entity, and just like, there's still islands being formed by volcanoes.
Right.
Like the stuff that's been happening for billions of years is still happening.
Yeah, every time you hear like mainstream media, like the coldest in history ever, and then when you see it on social media, like, no, this happened 30 years ago and it was colder.
Yeah.
It's for the ratings.
It's always the worst and the scariest. And
so being here on what did you notice? You just spent a couple hours walking around the property here. Don't spare my feelings. What sticks out here? What needs to be done?
Maybe you kind of have, because of the layout of the property, you kind of have like, you've got your upper pasture and then you've got this stuff in the back. You've got some edges there. I think maybe as you guys keep plugging along is to tie things together a little bit more. And I come to that because like you do your chores on a 4-wheeler, which that's awesome. I do everything on my farm by foot because I don't have a 4-wheeler yet. When the golf cart works, I'll use it, but hit and miss on that whole thing. So I kind of think about what can I do to shorten my walks and to make my path a little more efficient. So it could be interesting to think like, what if my ATV was down and I had to walk around? Would I want to, is like the way you stage your, you stage your food and everything right there by that animal's enclosure. I also think it would be interesting to experiment here on this backside where we usually camp with, some temporary electric fencing and set up some paddocks for those sheep.
That needs to be done. It really does to build that fertility back there. So do like the Greg Judy, do the rollout round bales, feed them so that they eat right there, stomp into place, which fertilizes and actually plants at the same time.
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, you could definitely do that, especially since you just have a few of the sheep. And a roll of hay would last a really long time. It wouldn't be such a big deal to waste a little bit of it by them stomping on it. Like the way I feed my sheep, we wrap the round bale in the large square cattle panels because otherwise they'll climb on it, they'll poop on it, and you wind up with a lot of waste. But we've got 11 plus a donkey, so they eat a lot. So yeah, you could definitely do that. I think it would be neat to just maybe probably do like a 6 paddock system. So one long line kind of right between your 2 access gates, do one long line all the way to the back. Keep your perimeter fence in place for the way it is, and then just make 3 cuts across.
Okay.
And you can just kind of, and you don't even have to necessarily set the whole thing up at once. I just set up like 1 paddock in advance at a time, usually. So there's a lot of ways to experiment with it, but if you can kind of mob graze those sheep a little bit, I bet you'll see your grass and your forage really improve.
I bet it would.
That land's still healing back there.
Because we haven't had anything concentrated back there. Those sheep just went back there. They've been up front the entire time.
Yeah.
And I put them in the back, and they were good. The dog was good with them, and then one day he mauled the male, just like out of nowhere. So that's why he's up front here now. I put the new Pyrenees puppy back there, and man, that is the smartest dog we have ever had.
Yeah.
Like when you go out there, she's laying there with the sheep. There's several times when I've gone out there, I'm like, man, that dog got out. Where's the dog? And she's just in there with the sheep, laying down with them.
Yeah.
So that's, I don't know what I'm going to do with that big dog right now. With those sheep, they got to kind of be opposite. So that kind of threw plans off a little bit, but if you look at the grass up top there, it's a lot better than in the back, and I think that it is those sheep, and we've had the rabbits and stuff there.
Yeah.
Because I can just go there and take care of, I can do everything on the property that has to do with the animals right now in 17 minutes, and I really do need to put stuff in the back, which is going to double that time. So, but we're to the point where that has to happen, otherwise we've just got that ground doing nothing. When Joel came in here, he was like, yeah, you got a little bit of, you got this little tiny area. And I'm like, man, a little tiny area? I thought I had a big area.
Yeah, to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all relative, I guess. Yeah. I think that would, just moving those sheep around a little bit it would be interesting to see what comes up from the seed bank that's probably hanging out in the soil and is there from all the stuff you guys have imported in.
Yeah, we had the power company dumping wood chips in the back too. We had that whole back area in wood chips that were 24 inches deep at one point. And then we've had fires and bonfires and all kinds of stuff. We're about to do Homestead Apprentice here. So we'll take that burn pile, and for guys that, I know this is audio and you're not seeing the burn pile, but the burn pile is pretty good size. So we're going to chip most of that. Normally we'll burn it, but I want that material. So we're
talking about that spot that's kind of there to the left on this closer gate.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And you'll reclaim, I don't know, maybe a 40 by 30-ish area by getting that back to not a mountain. And
it's pretty flat. It's totally flat there. Yeah. So to be able to utilize that, and plus you'll be able to see the pond then, and it'll open up a lot of that.
What is impressive is how many ponds you guys have here and how much water you're getting into the ground.
So we're on a hill, and that works. That water always went there. When we first came on the property, the plan was never to put SOE on this property. We were just kind of building the building out. We didn't really know what we were doing. We were showing it every day on videos just out of excitement. When the contractors would leave, we would just come here, and it was like an Easter egg hunt. Like, what was done, something new. And viewers were watching it, and they're like, oh, you should do this, and you should do that, and spiral staircase. I'm like, yeah, that sounds awesome. We'll totally do that. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we just said we're going to do it. So it really accelerated, and we built a pretty cool building. And we had a motocross track on the property, and it was all connected. It was 1.25 miles total, some really big jumps. That's why those gates are all double gates. We would just open them, and we'd come tearing through the parking lot, and then we'd spend half a day out here raking gravel and trying to put it back together. And the water always came. We had 23 goats up here, and all the chickens, a couple hundred chickens, and all that nutrients would make its way downhill. And the backside of that track, there was a double jump and triple jump, but it was wet all the time, and it stunk like really bad from all the nutrients, the poop coming downhill from there. So my guy was just, I go, hey, go back there and just put a culvert back there. Let's see if we can take care of this. And he'd message me and goes, hey, I got an idea. I go, so I told Cody, my son, I go, it's going to be pond. And I go, what's your idea? He goes, we should put a pond here. I'm like, yeah. And my idea, we talk face to face, me and Tim, and I'm like, okay, pond, not lake, pond. I want to still have this jump here, and we bring in an excavator, and 13 days later, we've got this 65-foot hole.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, let's do water retention, a lot of water. And that's the one up front. Like, it was going to be half that size, and it ended up being twice that size. And then William Bond came in, Billy and Michelle came in, and they said the water starts at the top, and we have that whole, we're going to lose that cliff out there. The state's talking 4-lane highway. Now, they've been saying that for 20 years.
Yeah.
And it seems like every 5 years, they're like, hey, we want you to realize that this isn't yours. And they come in and do a bunch of damage, and then they're like, oh, we don't have funding. So it starts that little hole at the top we dug out to get clay to try to fix a leak in the upper pond. And then Billy set that up, that swale. So the water comes down, fills that swale, and then the water fills that little pond. When that pond's at level, it backflows into the middle pond. The middle pond has an outlet, and that actually goes into a culvert, and we actually terminate that water, leaves the property at that point.
Yeah.
The one in the back, we took all of the downspouts from the building, which is 10,000 square foot of roof space, and all of those are individually trenched to that pond.
Nice.
So when we first got, and then there's that pond next door, that little one that's not ours. We actually stole all the water out of that pond at one point with a Honda. I think it was like $500-600, man. We bought this Honda trash pump.
You just pumped it over.
And we bought, I have 1,000 feet of 2-inch flat hose, and we turned it on, and I came out, and I'm like, that one in the back was like, it was a lot of water in there overnight.
Yeah.
My guys kept putting gas in it every time the thing would run out, so they were just camping on the property. And when we got the pond down low, we netted some of the fish, put them in there.
Yeah.
And then it rained like a couple days later and filled that whole thing back up. So we did it a couple times. But then at the same time when it was raining, we had a ton of water coming off the roof, and all of our drains were working, and it still works. Like, that thing will be low when it's hot, and as soon as you have a big rain, it's full.
Yeah.
Joel Salatin, when he looked at it, because we got a big 24-inch culvert, I think is what we got in there for drain, he goes, hey, if you take that big culvert out and you just put a bunch of 6 or 8-inch pipe in there, it'll raise the level of your pond like 20 inches. I'm like, man, I never thought of that. He goes, yeah, you can still have the volume. Just put 6 drains in there and you'll get the same evacuation, but it'll raise that level, at least 12 inches.
Yeah.
So, and he goes, then you don't have to trench as deep either. You don't have to worry about those pipes washing out.
Yeah.
Super good idea.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So yeah, with that pond back there, the math on that pond was 3 million gallons. I don't know how accurate we are, but that thing's 65 feet deep. It is super, like, it took minutes to walk down in there. When you're in there, you're looking up, you're like, man, this thing, like the big we had a 175 link belt excavator out here, and it looked tiny sitting down there in that hole.
Wow. If you just stand out here and look at it, you wouldn't guess it's that deep.
Yeah, you would never know. Yeah, you'd never know.
good hiding spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. It was cool when we were doing it. It was very, like when I go back every now and then, the videos pop up. I'm like, man, that thing is huge.
Yeah.
We put and within even before we put fish in it, fish were showing up. Turtles. I swear, if you dig a hole in Tennessee in your backyard, a turtle will show up.
Yeah.
Trying to lay eggs in there. And then we're close to the river, so the shorebirds eat live baby fish all the time, and then they just poop them out in the water, and then they eat pregnant fish and they poop the eggs out. We put red-eared or red cheek some kind of red face sunfish in there. We put some bluegill, and then we did hybrid bluegill also. And the hybrid bluegill, I think, can't reproduce. And I think we only put maybe 200 total in there because the surface area is not real giant.
Yeah. Do the herons ever come in? And
they do. Yeah. Yeah, we see them. Mm-hmm. White ones and gray ones, the like stork-looking things with the big long, and they do the spear in them.
They're getting water, ponds, getting water into the property does wonders for working towards that ecological balance. I mean, it's just, we all need it. Everything needs it. And like you said, things just show up. Mm-hmm. It's kind of incredible. It's like, I don't know where you came from, but here you are hanging out.
And then all the structures, like I have not guttered these buildings. We have 3 of these buildings that have no gutters on them. And, as you know, gutters are great because you can control where the water goes and the damage it does, but then you can also capture the water that's coming off. But the rabbit shed up there, that is 20 by 30, that single pitch roof. And we have that guttered, and that gutters out into a 15, that tank there's halfway buried in the ground. So we've got 1,500 gallons standing in that tank. And then the cutout at the top for overflow, that trenched into that middle, the big pond up there also. So that thing's pretty at level right now. It's got a major leak. When that was built, that whole dam was built around some big pine trees, which have died and rotted down. So it's pissing out of there. Yeah. So at some point, we're going to cut that out of there. I think we're going to just axe that whole middle pond and kind of bring that down and this up a little bit so we have more usable surface, so we don't have that 2-tiered deal, or at least not as much as it is. Now, Joel said, and Paul Wheaton's like, you should total hugelculture this thing, 9-foot berms. I'm like, okay, well, we're not doing any of that shit.
Paul's always got big ideas.
Yeah, Paul's like, okay, we need to undo everything you've done here. And pine trees, no, he said kill every pine tree. He said pine trees, nothing grows where pine trees are, is what he said. But Joel Salatin's like, you could do, tiered level. He had 4 or 5, different ideas for the property.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's, you're getting all these different ideas from people, and, I'm a kind of a strong believer that there's nothing, it's very rare that something is the only way to do it.
Yeah.
It's just more options to explore.
Yeah.
Cause I kind of come at things from, a less impact, like how productive can we get with as little, frankly, labor.
Yeah, so that's where we're at right now. Like, I have a real business that we run multiples.
Yeah.
So on a day-to-day, inputs on the property are really 20 minutes a lot of days. Now on the weekend, I'll be outside the entire day because I want to be.
Yeah.
If the power went out or we weren't running a sewing factory, we'd scratch all this. I mean, the first thing we do is take half of this gravel around here in the parking lot and scrape it back into a pile, and we just be growing right there. We'd put soil down on top, or we would do raised beds. I have a ton of raised beds, and that'd be more labor intensive, but at that point we don't need that. We could totally do different ways. I'd like to take some of the area in the back and just build out like some 50 by 50 pins and just seed different, like, I don't know, amaranth and barley, and just put them in there and see what they even do.
Yeah.
See what'll grow there. Maybe sweet potatoes or patches or something where we can keep the sheep out of there.
Yeah.
But I've thought about getting a tow behind seeder. Like we've broadcast seeded. We've got pull behinds for the trailers and stuff. And we put down, I think we put down $2,000 in grass seed just to get grass to grow. And as you see, the grass growing is where it washed downhill there. And we put straw out and watered it and everything. And it's all growing out in the trees. And then I hear Greg Judy's like, that toxic fescue. Well, that's exactly what we put down was fescue. And he's like, fescue's horrible for your animals. So that's all growing out there. But a dude that was at SRF, he's like, yeah, there's this place out in Tennessee that sells a Honda motor tow behind seed drill for a 4-wheeler. And it's like, I think it's like $6-7 grand.
I think that's, I've seen something like that, and that would be perfect for the size.
It seems great. Yeah. And then we've got so many friends that are doing projects like that where it would get used.
Yeah.
It seems super cool.
Yeah. That'd probably be your next best bet, to actually get that seed under the soil so it'll germinate and the birds aren't just picking it up. And
what would you immediately do?
That's a good question. I'd probably air back to getting that sheep paddock set up.
Okay.
Because that's really, this backside kind of seems to be your next area of focus for production. The front seems to be pretty maxed out with what you've got. And let those sheep work their magic. And you've got that older lamb and you've got that little lamb.
There's 2 babies.
Have 7 or 8.
Yeah, there's 3. There's 2 females, 1 male.
Yeah.
Adults, and then there's the 2 babies that were born this year.
Yeah. Are they rams or ewes? The babies?
I don't even know.
Don't know yet. Just wait and see how they pee. That's what I have to do.
Yeah. I just wait till they get that big ridiculous nutsack on them.
Or that's always a good indicator.
They're super skittish. Like they don't want you to touch them.
Yeah. Mine are the same way, even though I'm around them all the time. And the ram is friendly and he'll lean on me, but the rest of them could give a crap. So
yeah. What kind of sheep you got?
They're Katahdins. We're actually running a program. So they're not my sheep. They belong to a lady named Marcy Yaden, and she runs a meat-based CSA in the Knoxville area, East Tennessee they ship to, but it's called Knox Farms to Families. And several years ago, she developed a really bad bee allergy, like get stung and die bee allergy. She didn't want to give up her sheep, so she found people with land, and she rents her sheep onto the land. No money changes hands. It's really cool. I'm responsible for the day-to-day care, the water and everything. She covers the fencing, the charger, the hay when it's time for hay. And after 3 years, we get to split the offspring 50-50.
Oh, that's
so I'll
cool.
have my own starter flock at that point. And she's there for me for my questions. We only got them in August, so I'm still early in my sheep learning curve.
How many you have?
11 total.
How much property do you have them on?
We have about, there's kind of several adjoining lots, but I am grazing them across approximately 10 acres.
Okay.
It's kind of disjointed, so it's where I grew up. So mom and dad are there, my brother is there, and then we've got our cabin up at the top, and the layout is really weird. The way things are. So I just kind of ended up creating a route that I took them through, and just kind of scoped ahead. And we just finished. So back in mid-December, I put them into their basically their winter paddock, which you've probably heard people talk about a sacrificial zone. So I went and put them in about an acre, maybe 3/4 of an acre paddock that is mostly just privet, pine trees, cedar trees, a lot of bush honeysuckle, just a lot of overgrowth. Mm-hmm. And brambles and all that good stuff. And I'm just letting them work that whole area over, because it's not pasture at all. Because, of course, at this point, there's, quite a bit of poop there. And, they've got their hay ring, so they got a clean spot for the hay. And as they work that area over, I'm able to get in there with a chainsaw, and I drop those privet down to the ground. They actually love the stuff. So they get happy when I drop some privet for them. I'm talking about trees that are 30 feet tall.
Yeah, I've seen Doc Berry do a lot. He has big pastures. Yeah. But he'll just cut limbs off of stuff, and they just run up and just gobble that stuff down. Yeah.
And then later I pick up those branches, and I either run them through the chipper or throw them on a brush pile and burn them, or just whatever.
What are you running for a chipper? What do you have?
I got that little Harbor Freight Special.
Okay.
But it works for stuff.
For limbs and stuff, yeah.
And frankly, anything bigger than about 3 inches, I cut it up for firewood anyhow.
Okay.
Because we're in a small home with a small wood stove, and therefore my firewood is small.
That's nice, yeah. And you heat 100% with firewood, don't you?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we're on a solar and a battery system, so we use it. The wood stove came from a American company called tinywoodsstove.com.
Oh, the little square box that runs the cubes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and this one has an oven with it. So you can put a 9x9 casserole dish in there. So we use the oven in the wintertime. And yeah, I mean, it hits great. When we were, so the cabin's like 400 square feet.
Okay.
And we were perfectly warm when we had that super cold snap. I got up a couple times in the night to feed it because it doesn't retain a really good cold bed, but it's got so much thermal mass and the space is small enough.
Did you start with a shed or did you stick build that yourself or what'd you do?
It was actually one that you can order and they deliver.
Nice.
So we ordered, it's 14 by 32 and a company called Cumberland Woodworking is a Mennonite community in Clark Range, Tennessee that builds them. And they just delivered it. My brother and I built a pad, built a gravel foundation for it, and they just drop it off on the skids.
Cool.
We've got a workshop, metal workshop built into the same size.
Right on. Are you going to add on to that? Or are you good with what you have right now?
We do want to add on to the cabin, actually close to double of what it is, and eventually have probably start with just decking it and screening it, and then eventually enclose it. But it would be nice to be able to have my freezers and refrigerator in the cabin and not 30 feet away in my workshop.
Yeah. Yeah, I get caught on that short form content on the tiny houses all the time, man. They'll build like a cool little greenhouse and there'll be a bathtub out there.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, that looks so cool.
Yeah.
And then if you had that heat, the freezer and fridge in there, that heat would be pulled out. You'd have that heat out there too, heat in that area.
Yeah. Yeah, it works. I mean, it's just me and my wife and dog and a couple of cats. And when you're stuck inside a lot, it starts to feel a little bit crowded. But most of the time, if I'm home, I'm outside. Mm-hmm. Even if the weather's kind of bad, I'm still outside doing something, or I'm in the workshop.
That's cool.
Or I'm in the high tunnel. So, yeah, we make it work. We reduced our need for money so that I could build this business and get through times where money is lean, like it can be in the wintertime. And it just gave me more flexibility to, just kind of coordinate my life the way I wanted.
Are you building content?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I have gotten much more dedicated to getting stuff on YouTube regularly. I've started doing a Friday live. I'm going to still try to do it tonight. We'll see. But past few weeks, just do a live at 6:30 Eastern every Friday. And we just get on there and just I kind of give a farm update, what I've been up to, what new projects, answer questions. People can submit questions in advance. Just kind of talk about all things that is the business and is the lifestyle.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, because you can. The reason I ask that is because when money starts going down in the winter, right? If you can get some kind of revenue and affiliate deals with products that you use, just do like review products in the winter and build content about those. And then, hey, this is a product I truly use. I really like it. Here's a link. Mm-hmm. And, you'll get a little bit of money coming through from there. And then like Amazon, we do an Amazon affiliate where we show products that we actually use that are, from Amazon. And then we've got some brand affiliate deals also, like EMP Shield, for instance. Mm-hmm. So you get a little bit of money coming in that way, enough at least that you can pay bills. If something did happen, you can still pay the bills. Yeah. And then you make all your real money, when things are warmer and people are, you go out in the snow, you're not going to show a whole lot of people, hey, we're going to plant this stuff right here in the snow.
Yeah. Yeah. It does. You have to get a little bit creative with that time of year. And, it seems like there's I had a number of contractual jobs that, pay a certain amount each month. And that is kind of that becomes the wintertime fund. But that was property maintenance stuff, which I decided I did not want to continue doing into this year. So I know what amount of money that is. And I just know that I'm just going to find another way to earn it.
And there's a lot of property up by you guys for sale, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah. And some of it actually is starting to be more reasonable. There are parcels. I saw parcels recently up in the Maynardville area, which is the county north of us. We're not in the city of Knoxville. We're in Knox County. We're 10 miles from downtown Knoxville. But I mean, you go 30 minutes in any direction and you're no longer in the suburbs. It looks like out here. Mm-hmm. Plenty of land, plenty of open spots. I'm going to meet a lady on Monday to look at a spot she's curious about in the Maryville area because it's unrestricted, undeveloped.
I have no codes or zoning right here.
And, we just want to look at it and see, is this going to work? I do evaluation prior to purchase. So even if somebody is thinking about bidding or getting a contract or whatever, I can come out there and make sure, look at things like knowing mineral rights is kind of a big deal, knowing your water rights, and, you know, just make sure it's not a super fun site that.
No shit. Yeah.
I mean, that can happen. So yeah, we kind of look at all that stuff from like a home inspector, but for the property.
That'd be awesome for people looking to buy property here that aren't on ground too, because you could go out and they could pay you to go out and look at that property before they fly out here.
Yeah.
Look at several properties for them. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm forming some partnerships with some local realtors to kind of,
good,
you know, go that route as well.
I was surprised looking at on our local Facebook group. I don't go out in town here a lot. Like I'll go 2 weeks and not even leave this property sometimes. Mm-hmm. So when I started reading locally, I was surprised. Somebody said, hey, how many, something about how many farms are local here that you can actually go to buy produce from or buy, you know, meat or whatever. And there was over 100 on that list right here. And they were, most of them, when I actually clicked on all of them to see when they had started going, because I wasn't even aware they were here. And most of them have moved here in the last 5 years, but really most of them moved here in like the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And there's people buying up because we had big spreads of property, like big farm. And it's that go big or go home. And I heard recently most farmers work 1 or even 2 full-time jobs in order to be able to afford to farm.
Yeah.
And then you have that generation passing away, leaving it to the kids, and they don't want to farm at all. So they take that 1,000 acres and bust it up into, you know, 100-acre lots. So there's a lot of that around here, and these guys have really made a go of it. Man, some of these properties are just amazing what they're doing, and the output coming out of these small footprints on this stuff. And they're here, man. There's a ton, and you don't even know they're here. Like there is an economy here that is happening that the normal people in town here have no idea even exists.
Yeah. I encounter that sometimes where, because I'm so embedded in the preparedness and homesteading movement and permaculture and all that kind of stuff, when I go out into the real world, which to me feels pretty fake these days.
Yeah, our world's the real world.
Yeah.
We go out into that other world that's much larger than our world.
Yeah, and it's just amazing the level of ignorance people have.
Can't change their own tires.
Yeah, it's just I mean, I'm sure maybe not some, you guys might not have seen it as much on this end of the state where, you know, you're more rural and maybe people know how to do stuff. But I was just kind of monitoring like next door in the local neighborhood Facebook groups during the snowpocalypse, and people couldn't deal. They just could not deal. Like they could, and then when it finally melted and things started to get back to normal, they could not understand why
the potholes
and why their trash wasn't picked up and why they didn't have mail yet.
We saw it too, man. I'm like, where did you guys come from? Like you live in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, what'd you think was going to happen when you moved here without a 4-wheel drive vehicle?
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
And man, you really get the pulse of society. Like there are those zombies walking around out there.
Yeah.
The only thing holding society together on a given day is the fear that there might be repercussion of doing evil things to people. So just imagine if the power actually went out, or the cops are like, hey, we're not coming.
We're not coming. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of it. You know, the sheriff's office and KPD did their snow plan, which is basically like, unless you're dead, we're not coming out.
And if you're dead, we're still not. Put them out in the snowbank.
Yeah, pretty much. And, you know, because I worked on an ambulance for 15 years. That's actually my background is, you know, EMS and public service. So, and I got out of that in 2019. But, you know, I still kind of have a few buddies from that who are still working, and they were like, yeah, it's just, it's a show. It's a complete show out here. I was going out kind of like the second or third day when like the snow had finally stopped falling and it's freezing cold and it's not going anywhere. And I was walking across to go check on the sheep, and I see this guy walking towards me. On
your property?
On my property. Well, onto my property, nowhere near any kind of property line. And I started walking towards him, and I have my big poplar walking stick. And as soon as he saw me, like his hands went up, like he knew, you know, and I was like, can I help you? And he was like, I live in Chesney Hills. You know, it's the neighborhood next door. We've got suburbia all butted right up against us.
It's coming here too.
Yeah. And he said, I'm just trying to get down to the food city. And I said, okay. And I thought about it for a minute because part of me wanted to be like, why the hell are you on my property? But he said the road is, our street is too icy. I can't get down. This is after that ice had come through. And the way that, and I know how that neighborhood's set up, and like everybody, it's on a hill, steep hill, and everybody's yard is tiered with like a wall that goes all the way to the road. So you'd be like scooting down on your butt. It'd be crazy. I was like, okay, fine. I said, just keep following the driveway, hang a right when you get to the junction. And so I saw, his boot prints go down, and I saw boot prints come back up. And I said, if I see any other pair of boot prints that's not his or mine, So it was, I had a moment, and I was talking to my wife about it a couple of days ago after I kind of thought it through. I said, once it was obvious that he was not a threat and he was not there to take my stuff or hurt anybody, I was like, okay, well, I don't want to make an enemy of a neighbor. That would be uncool, because we're outnumbered by neighbors. And I just kind of realized, part of me was like, well, crap, are we going to have a parade of people coming from this neighborhood now? Because, there's an old barbed wire fence over there, but that's not going to stop anybody.
You need more fence.
So, we would have, but our property is gated for the driveway at least, but we've got so much edge, it would be tens of thousands of dollars of fencing to get done.
It is. I say I have more money in fencing than the property cost, and we're not quite there, but we have. Just the black fence up here was $48,000 with the gates and the black and just the chain link, right? Mm-hmm. And then we have all the other, which is probably another $20,000 in fencing. But the fences really took care of everything. Yeah. Like we used to have, you'd hear a truck or something out back crunching on the gravel, and you're like, "What are you doing back here?" "Oh, I was just looking for the front door." Well, you missed it by 400 feet.
Yeah.
You're in the wrong place. Take off. But the fences take care of everything, and now with the gates and then the dogs, like nobody's coming in here with the dogs.
Yeah,
like you've really put an effort forth to get to the front door of this property here.
Yeah.
So the dogs really take care of all of that, and that's why we did kind of a circle within a circle, because we can put the dogs around the building, or I can keep the dogs in the paddocks, and you can have different types of dogs for that.
Yeah,
and that really makes just a world of difference. We used to have a pivot gate. And it was just hideous. It's sitting out there. We actually kept it. It's this hideous, used to be yellow, probably 1.5-inch pipe that came all the way across the driveway. I'll bet that sucker's 25, 30 feet long. Mm-hmm. And it barely had a brace, and you just pivot it and lock it with a chain link at night. And we've had 3 people. A guy came flying. I don't know how he did it. He must have right angle, hit that fence so much that it bent that fence up. And his little Honda Corolla or whatever it was came sliding underneath, and it blew out all the windows in the entire car and crushed the roof line down 6 inches. He's like literally laying inside. He's very lucky it didn't take his head off. We weren't on the property at the time. We got a call from a friend who was a state trooper, and he said, "Hey, can you come out here? Something's going on at the shop." So I come flying out here, and I come onto the property. The gate's still closed. There's sheriffs here, highway patrols here, and this car. And I go, "How did he get in the property? Like, where did he come from? There's no way he came through the back in that car." Mm-hmm. And like, we're just still trying to figure it out. I go, "What's all this broken glass?" And that's what it was, man. He busted through there.
Wow.
And he said he had just paid the car off and took his insurance down to liability. And he had to drive all the way home to Jackson, which is an hour drive. And it was 30 degrees. It was snow outside. And then my doofus neighbor, I don't know where he was coming from, and he did the same thing. And the gate's yellow. Like, I don't know how they did it, but he had it in a new Tahoe, and it came up and creased his whole hood down and hit that A-pillar and blew his front windshield out, and that totaled that truck too.
Wow.
So we kept that as a souvenir. But the new fences we're 5 feet into concrete. We're in we got a 4x4 concrete pad. And I said when they built it, I go, "I want this to stop a dump truck."
Sure.
So we've got the gates. But, man, the gates were the best thing we ever did. We just click them open. They roll open. Have to have power for that, but we can disconnect them. And then we've got that big swing out that'll lock that thing too.
Yeah.
But that really game changer.
Yeah. My brother decided to put a gate in several years ago because it was just random people, because the driveway kind of sort of looks like it could be a road. It's wide enough, paved and everything, and you just have people just kind of wandering up, like come up a hill, and so that's helped a lot. And I try not to be overly paranoid. Can't do anything about the fact that we have all these people around us. I try to make friends first, and we hold quarterly gatherings, you know, for people who want to see the place, who want to see our systems, and, you know, network and all that good stuff. And, you know, when I make announcements on various places, I usually get at least one or two people that are like, "Why are you inviting people up to see your stuff?" I'm like, they're already around me. I'd rather have these people in my back pocket as, hey, we've met, we've shaken hands, we've made a connection. Perhaps you would help me out if we had an issue that big.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we can always live in the aspect of fear, right? I'm 52. Every year there was something that was supposed to wipe us out, and I like to point out I'm 52 and nothing's wiped us out. Yeah, the possibility of coronal mass ejection, EMP, whatever, definitely very real. Like we were all ready for Y2K. There was 50 of us there, like ready for Y2K. Nothing happened. We're like, okay, maybe it's tomorrow night. Maybe they're off by 24 hours, but you're a lot better off just operating out of positivity, man. Your life is going to go a lot easier if you just act as though, you know, do good with people and, you know, it's reciprocal, but have a plan for the bad, right? But you can't live in that negativity all the time. You just can't. It'll eat you up.
Yeah. Whenever I get ready to travel, because I've read 1 Second After and all those books and everything. I've digested all that stuff, but I always tell my wife, I'm like, okay, if it pops off, this is how long I think it'll take me to walk home. So don't send out a search party until this amount of time has elapsed, you know. And frankly, if I'm not home by then, you probably shouldn't bother sending out a search party. I have not won the battle, but yeah, always pack, make sure I've got good shoes and water and what I would need to carry on my back to, you know.
The 4th book from him is out for 1 Second After. Yeah. It's on audio. Angry American is a great book series, the Going Home series, and he will be here at SRF here. He'll be speaking and presenting at SRF, which is awesome.
We've read some of his books in Tim's book club.
Yeah, so super excited. I'm going to be on a live with them next week. I think I'm on a live with them.
Awesome.
Very excited to meet him and his wife. That's very cool, man. Very cool.
I'm loving the momentum of all this with SRF and everything that's adjacent to it. It's, you know, when I started going to Nicole's stuff in 2020, you know, I started to build that network, and now it's huge.
Yeah, it's its own thing.
You know, like I feel good driving across the state now because, you know, it's a Jeep, so there's chance it's going to let me down. And I've got 15 people I could holler at if I got into a pickle anywhere between here and Knoxville. So yeah, that kind of stuff is just amazing, and I'm here for it all the way.
And there's a ton of people that have come here. You know, they've left the other lifestyle or whatever, and they just want to live this. And then there's people that have been here, generationals, and we have access to them. It just kind of draws them. You know, SRF is a good example of that. I like to say California because it's the extreme, but people come here every time from SRF and meet somebody that lives 15 minutes away from them. And they've never met each other, and they've lived there 20, 30 years. And it took coming to this something in common. Yeah. And it's just awesome, man. And then they come out here and they're like, you know, I wanted to see this place. I think I'd like to live out here. So as properties come available, we have a network of people that we can kind of plug that into. Hey, I know you're saying you want to move. Here is an opportunity to come out this way. And then we end up with like-minded people instead of, you know, weirdos coming in and they want to, how come we don't have, you know, a movie theater here? Well, you moved to a city that has 3,000 people. That's why you don't have that. Yeah. So just to get like-minded people out is important.
Folks who just like to do their thing and be left alone.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to do, we're starting Homestead Apprentice, something we're running. We kind of had talked about doing man camp and just taking, you know, young men and boys and just teach them how to tie down loads and just stuff that they don't know how to do, just normal things. And it started, we were going to take all these top level, you know, gun dudes, Chris Costa, James Yeager, all these guys. And I said, I want you to come in, but I don't want to do no gun stuff. And they're like, cool. Cause anytime they'll be here for 4 or 5 hours hanging out, we don't talk any gun stuff. It's what everybody does. So to get those dudes in here that are the pinnacle of the industry and teach young men how to be men, everybody was very on board with it. And that kind of transitioned into we need more employees and we need like-minded employees. We get a lot of people that show up, but there's just things, sometimes some of them work out, some of them don't. Yeah. So let's kind of run like a selection. So we're going to bring in 50 people. We're all the Homestead Apprentice is set up. The .com is there to submit your video resume. It's not really even a resume. We're not looking for anything specific. We're going to pull 50 of them out. And then we're going to whittle that down to 2 teams of 10, and they'll be here for 4 weeks, and we're going to, they're going to camp, they're going to build a structure, they're going to live in the structure, and then we got a bunch of people coming in to, teach different things. So,
excellent.
Yeah, I think it'll be good, man. And hopefully we'll pull a couple dudes that, the potential for employment will be there for them. And not just here, but we've got guys coming from Ohio that'll be involved. So the possibility of having network in Ohio, North Carolina, here, East Tennessee being Nicole as well. She's definitely very involved in it. So it's neat. And then we're securing a property. We're going to take that first winter, give him an acre, and kind of do like a planned community type thing. Mm-hmm. So that first guy will get an acre of property, and then the second time we run this program, that's where that will go to help build that property out. And then the winner of that one will get an acre of property in there. So, common area, kind of like what Jack was doing with that big project that was like 120 acres at one point.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. But right here where you can keep an eye on things.
Yeah. Yeah. And assist also. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, having a skid steer and a Mini X is a game changer for any of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, well, if there's anything you feel like can contribute to that project, you know how to.
You absolutely can.
Yeah. I'm all about it, and I think this kind of thing is, we take this and we replicate this all over the place. That's our kind of ultimate place. Our ultimate goal at our place is to get another building on there that we can use for classes, a library, tool library, and same thing. Teach people how to use power tools, especially
for real.
Young people and women who are afraid of them. Don't be afraid. Let's learn how to, and just little things like that. Because we've gone through our own learning curve. I was so specialized for so long. I learned how to do a lot of stuff later, in my 30s. I'm 40 now. So we're, eventually we're going to get to the point where we're going to have funds, whether we run a Kickstarter or I just kind of save money for it, we'll get a building on the property. We already hold classes, but it'll be nice to have a place in the dry and all that. And, wherever we can serve that community, that's what we want to do.
Mm-hmm. So when's that going to be?
I need to hold myself accountable on that. I think it is a reasonable goal to have that building on site by 2026.
How much do you think you need for that?
My wife is actually starting to work on the budget for that. Probably roughly $10,000.
So let's shoot for 20 and let's do it in 25. I mean, you saw Nicole do it.
Yeah.
And like Nicole, I think she was looking for 10 and I think it jumped to a 30 like right away.
Yeah.
And I had the conversation several times and I said, "Well, kickstart this thing." And when I hit her up originally, I'm like, "What's the most coffee you've ever done?" And I think she said 60 pounds. I'm like, "Perfect. We're going to do 120." Mm-hmm. And she actually caught her roaster on fire roasting 120. So that was kind of an emergency. Oh shit, we have to do something right now. Mm-hmm. And she kickstarted the new one and met it like immediately just through mine and Jack's and a couple people's socials. That was funded almost immediately. And her people immediately around her were like, "Hey, this is getting too big. And I go, "Nah, don't shut that thing off. Run that thing, man. You you can do this." Mm-hmm. And especially because you have to do it, there's no option that you're not going to do it. Yeah. Let's operate outside that comfort level and find out what we can really do. And that was that first time we did coffee, and then we doubled it the next time. My buddy Lance had done, he does some soap that is just incredible. There's nothing like it. And he did our custom soaps for us. And he'd done 20 bars, and I said, "Okay, I want 60." And he goes, "I don't know if I can do 60. I go, "You can do 60. And then we did 120, and I think it was 200 bars that we did at the last time we did it.
Nice.
He's actually coming out here teaching Amanda how to do that in a couple of weeks. So we're going to be doing that for 3 weeks. We are not going into the soap company. We are making one soap and one soap only.
Yeah.
But it'll be good. We'll build some awesome content with Lance and those guys. So.
Excellent.
Yeah, whenever you're ready to do that, man, we will push the eyeballs to you for sure.
I appreciate it greatly. I want to make sure it's very clear that people know what I'm offering and what they get in exchange for their money. Like this, I just don't want to half-ass
I'm with you. I'm with you. We have one level on Patreon only. When Austin put it together, we had 4, and I'm like, I don't know what we're giving them, and they will. They'll pay. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. Yeah. We're going to do one level until I can clearly have something to give the second, third, fourth levels.
Yeah.
We got a buddy of ours we're helping on his channel a lot, Scully, who I do the podcast with, and he's making more money on his Patreon than we are, and has a third just because he has more levels on the Patreon.
Yeah.
So it is, people will pay because they want to assist.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that I watch a lot of content from, and I'm like, how can I do business with this guy? Like, what does he even do?
Yeah.
And a lot of times you just don't know where the money comes from. So anytime there's like, I'm on a lot of dudes' Patreons.
Yeah.
Just at the higher level, just because I appreciate the content and the interaction. And especially when you meet them in real life and they're actually like that,
Mm-hmm.
that's a big difference. You do meet a lot of creators, and because the story we will tell is always different than what the reality is. So when you meet one of those dudes and it's actually like the videos, man, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
That's a really big thing.
That's why I take it so seriously to have people out to our property, because they can see, like, here's what's working, here's where I need to make changes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, there's no fluff. There's no, and everything that you see, most of it is something that I have repurposed or rescue, whatever, tool wise and everything. So, and a lot of people, that's appealing to a lot of people because,
it gives them hope.
Yeah. It makes more sense, and it's, it just works. It just works for folks. And then, and sometimes it's good to drop the appropriate amount of coin to make something happen too.
Yeah, money's a time saver a lot of times.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't have money for these, beautiful raised beds. Well, you can put them in trash cans. You put in 5-gallon buckets. I got 200 protein tubs on the back of the building here just to put plants in,
Yeah, there's an amazing amount of stuff that you can pick up at the scrap metal section over at your local dump. And, I've had one Knox County waste guy yell at me, and I'm like,
you're going to throw it away.
And
yeah,
you want a $10 bill here. So, that's kind of the aesthetic we're going for, is like, creative use of things, producing inputs on your land. We're doing the biochar, we're doing the composting, we're doing all that stuff, we're doing the worm composting. We can show all that stuff. I've got a worm compost system in an old chest freezer, buried cool. 3/4 of the way into the ground. It works great, and it makes its own compost tea because it holds some water, but I just keep enough material in there that the worms get up out of the water and they don't drown. And then I dip out the compost tea to soak the biochar in it. And when I have a lot of that, I apply it, to the garden or the fields or whatever. So it's just stuff like that. I think a lot of people get the Instagram aesthetic of the perfect, beautiful this and that. It really gets people down when they don't have California money to throw at that kind of thing off the bat.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
I am a redneck. My dad's a bike mechanic. My parents were literally married at the Outlaws Clubhouse. And I think there's enough people out there who find that story interesting.
Yeah.
That, you can take care of business in a multitude of ways.
Have your parents seen the property you have now?
That's where we all live.
Oh,
That's
no
where
shit.
I grew up.
Oh,
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So my great-grandfather bought the land in the early 30s. When my grandmother got married around 1953 or 54, she built her house there. My great-grandfather was a farmer, cabinet maker, and a builder. So my nan's house, they built, and then when Dad got married and moved out, built his house next door. And my brother, my nan passed away in 2013, so Tyler, my brother, has lived in her house since then. So it's all of us up there, and it's the kind of thing where, because of the location, we get offers all the time from developers. And I can only speak for myself, but no amount of money could part me from the land, because I have that deep of a connection to it. And that's kind of the other way I want to serve people, is helping them cultivate that kind of connection to their land.
Yeah.
Some people just see land as just strictly an asset, and I think there's more to it than that. So
all combined, is it all on 1 acre, or is there more than one?
It's close to the lot Angel and I are on is 10. Behind Mom and Dad is another 7, and then Dad's spot with their house and Tyler's spot with his house are roughly 3 or 4 apiece.
And that's all connected? It all touches?
Yeah, it's all connected.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah. There used to be a lot more. I had an uncle. Everybody's got that one family member who does uncool stuff. And when my nan was incapacitated, there were portions of property sold off that shouldn't have been, because of the way her power of attorney was set up. but shit happens and you can't always do something about it. So we're taking care of what is remaining. And that's the focus for the rest of my life, is to continue to improve that land.
Understood,
and
yeah.
set it up as a place where people can come out and see these systems, see how it works, teach, and maybe eventually we need to do a trust or something like that, because none of us have had kids, so we don't know what happens in the next generation. We'll answer that question eventually.
So you hear culture war. That's the new word right now.
Yeah.
Is culture war. Culture war. How do we win the culture war? And I think that a big part of it is we have taken our elderly and we warehouse them, right? When they can't do on their own, we don't want to have to spend the time to assist them, so we put them someplace where we don't have to take care of them. Mm-hmm. Whereas if instead you did have multiple generations on a property like you're doing, if we can have it doesn't have to all be under one roof either. You can have a place where your parents can stay on the property, and then you have a place where your children can stay on the property, and then as you get older or you have grandchildren, the older people can help assist in them when they can't, work the soil or go out and make money.
Yeah.
But having those generations all in one place, plus you tell your family's history, right? History is his story. Mm-hmm. And we send our kids someplace to be programmed rather than to be educated by our own people with our own beliefs. And I think that's a big part of the issues that we're having out in society. And as crazy as it looks when you turn it on, the media is amplifying the absolute most insane to make it look like it's a real thing. And people are latching onto that and going, oh, I don't want to go out there. The society is absolutely insane. So if we can, provide for our families and have that situation like you have, that's a complete game changer.
Yeah. And that was one of the big reasons when my wife and I decided to move back to the family land in 2020 after having our urban homestead for about 14 years. A big part of it was that I didn't see my parents as much as I wanted to, even though they weren't that far away. And they're both getting close to 70 now. So, I want to be there. I want to be there and engage with them. And, I get my love of nature largely from Mom. So we go on wildflower walks and do things, and I don't want to make it sound like anything heroic, but we were in September of 2021. I was home in the evening, there in our cabin, just 30-second run from Mom and Dad's house, and my dad had collapsed. And he had either an allergic reaction or maybe a very sudden asthma attack, and he was not breathing. And Mom called me, and I ran down there and got Dad onto his back and started CPR, and he started to attempt to breathe agonal respirations. It's not actual breathing, but it's better than nothing at all. We called the ambulance, had them come up, and I can't say for certain, but if I had not been there, Dad might have died that day. So that was just a huge, it's like my point was made. I was like, we're supposed to be back here. Yeah. We're supposed to be on this land. And it is the plan to be able to care for Mom and Dad as they age. Fortunately, they're in a house. It's no stairs or anything like that. So we're going to be able to take care of things. And I helped care for my grandmother when she had a stroke. And lost all function on one side of her body and really couldn't talk anymore. Me and other family members and a few other paid caregivers kept her in that home for 4 years instead of her dying after 6 months in a nursing home.
That's right.
So that kind of stuff is really important to me. And you're right. I'd like to prove to people that whether it's your blood family or your chosen family and chosen community, we don't have to go all hippie commune. You just have your little cabin, have your own space, but we can get together for meals when we want to. We can help each other out. I mean, it's just the way we are up there. We split firewood together. My brother and I and Dad get up there and rib each other and have fun and just do stuff. And I'm not all that mechanically inclined, but as I've spent more time with Dad, I'm getting better because Dad has been teaching me things like, here's how you dismantle a carb. Because before I've just been sitting there on YouTube getting madder by the minute.
Yeah, I just buy a carb.
Yeah, I just order one. Exactly. Yeah, so just things like that. So I think as a society, I think we see the division, and our side is just going to trend back to a more traditional way of doing things, and and that's fine.
A lot of it comes down to just telling people, hey, there's another way.
Yeah.
Because they're programmed that they need a 3,000 square foot house
Mm-hmm.
with 2.5 bathrooms, and typically that comes with 2.5 kids. And in most cities, you have to have 2,000 square foot footprint, or you can't build. Well, that's because that's the tax base that brings the money in. Those are the kids that are going to spend the money. That's the money coming into the school.
Yeah.
And if you literally, hey, you don't have to do that, right? We don't have to have 6 people living in this house. You don't have to have, your house doesn't even have to all be under one roof. Mm-hmm. You can have multiple buildings. Like, you just have to tell somebody that. And to come and see it, they're like, man, there really is something different, and I want this.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. When we have folks come up, they're always, kind of impressed with, they're like, oh, it's so nice that you guys are, are all living together and y'all get along. It's just because, we all respect one another.
Still have our spaces.
We all have our own spaces, and if there is, an issue, like we try to address things up front. And when I first started wanting to hold classes out there and have people out, Dad and Tyler were kind of like, because they're really private, and I get it because I am too, and I was like, so we just kind of set some ground rules, and basically I just kind of keep them advise as to what's going on, and I'm expecting this many people, and we don't give out the gate code. We use a special setting on the gate and things like that, and and we've been back there. It'll be 4 years. It'll be 4 years this fall that we've been back there, and it was the right decision.
That's cool, man. Yeah. Joel Salatin said even during events, him and his wife will be sitting at the kitchen table eating dinner, and there'll be, just people looking in, like, hi.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I understand.
Yeah. We just kind of set up like certain, boundaries and expectations with people. And, we've been doing these gatherings for going on 2.5 years or so now. And, we've never had an issue. One time a guy brought a dog since we've had the sheep and started to just let the dog out of the truck. And I was like, whoa, hold up.
Yeah.
You can keep them on a leash over there.
Yeah.
You've got sheep.
We tell them all the time, don't bring your animals here, because
bring your little frou-frou
dog.
I
completely understand you think your animal's trained. I'm not worried about your animal. Mm-hmm. Mine is going to maul your dog. We take the dog and we put him in the paddock in a kennel, and without fail, every time you'll hear the dog going crazy, and you look up there and there's somebody. And the first thing we tell them is these dogs will bite the shit out of you.
Yeah.
And there's always somebody has to test that theory. Yeah. Somebody thinks they're the dog whisperer, man.
I don't know why people just believe what I'm saying.
It's to the point where we actually chain the kennel, just because the only thing keeping that kennel closed is that little metal pin in there, man.
Oh yeah, they'll push on that enough, and
So, but we do it, man. You've seen it. I think you've been to every one of the SRFs.
I think all but the very first one, yeah.
So we'll have 700 to 1,000 people here.
Yeah.
And it's a different experience, but it's over in 2 days, and then we're back to normal.
Are you pooped out at the end of it? Do you have to kind of reset?
No, I'm physically tired, because I'm just moving constantly. We did the first one. We were doing parties here, and we've had 960 people come in from around the world for a party. And during COVID, I quietly said, hey, we're going to have a get together. And I expected, 60 people, and we had 300 here. And Nicole came out. And that Saturday night, I got in bed at 12, and I said, I'm exhausted. And Amanda goes, yeah, you've been running for 16 hours, full speed, just running people all over the property. Yeah. And I go, yeah, my feet kind of hurt. And then Nicole, the next day, she said, well, what do you think? How'd it go? And I said, I think there's something really to this. People came out, normally we'll have 3 or 4 music, rock bands, real rock bands, rappers and stuff, and 2 food trucks and fireworks and 40 machine guns. It's a pretty big event that's coordinated. And we didn't do none of that shit. And 300 people showed up. And I said, man, I don't have Shamu here. I don't have a Ferris wheel. I feel like I've let you guys down. And they're like, no, we want to see the aquaponics. We want to see the rabbits. So Nicole, I said, maybe we should do something kind of like Jack does, Mm-hmm. And she goes, well, how involved do you want to be? I said, I want you to do all of the work, and I'll just take the credit for it. And it's really turned, and she did.
Yeah.
She absolutely did. And it's turned into something way beyond that. But we're at our limit. We're not going to be able to put more than 1,000 people on the property.
Yeah.
And eventually maybe she takes that someplace else and does something. I'm I'm here. I'm going to continue to do something here, whether it goes back to parties or SRF. But I mean, SRF is big enough that it could go someplace in a bigger venue for sure.
Yeah, we're kind of lining up with a group called the East Tennessee Homestead Alliance, and you can look that up. There's a Facebook page for it, and I didn't start this, but I met a lady named Sandy who lives in Lenoir City, and she same thing. She saw the need, people wanting to get together, and we don't really have anything coordinated for that end of the state officially, and so she just kind of set up this umbrella organization. Had our first meeting right before Snowpocalypse. And this was just like a 2-hour mixer at a little wedding venue to kind of get people to meet and group. 100 people showed up.
Yeah.
And so she's like, wow, we're going to have a festival. We're going to have a festival in the summer. And, she's looking for a place that'll accommodate about 500. Mm-hmm. And I suggested, I said, that's cool. And I get that, but we may have to consider that, we limit tickets to what we can afford or what we can get, a decent rate on, whatever, in terms of hosting. Our place, we're not set up for 100 people would be pushing it big time. We'd have to get really creative. But, yeah, so if anybody listening has a venue, preferably in like the Knox or Loudoun County area that would like to host up to 500 people,
I'm sure that's totally doable.
Haul at me. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have West Tennessee Alliance. That's Dawn Gorham out of Dixon. And her property's great. Like, she built that cannery out there. I think she's got 4,000 foot barn dominium.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And it's awesome, man. Once a month, they have somebody come in and do a presentation, and great location. And Dawn's got that going on. And she's heavily involved in SRF as well.
Yeah. She's one of those, she's got that kind of energy. Nicole has it. Sandy has it. Like, they have that people energy. And I have a certain amount of people energy for a very precise amount of time. And then it's like,
for certain people.
You'll see me disappear for a little while after that. But yeah, I'm grateful for folks that have that kind of cheerleader mentality, because we need it. It needs to be part of the movement. And I'm kind of more like, give me a job and I'll make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, man. Thanks for sitting down. I think this is the longest we've ever spoken.
It probably is, and I appreciate the time. I've enjoyed it.
Absolutely. So give them all your socials again.
StrongRootsResources.com. Same thing for Instagram. The Telegram group, I don't think I have it public because of the spammers. So just email me, strongrootsresources@gmail.com, and I'll get you the link to the Telegram group. We've got about 55 people in there. We just talk about whatever's up, whatever we do problem solving. I think recently we were talking about whether or not we could eat, if it was safe to eat food or safe to eat animals that have been grazing on a golf course because of chemicals and stuff. So there's just no telling what we're going to talk about. The YouTube channel is good. There's more content coming to that, and we do the live every Friday night, 6:30 Eastern.
Awesome. And you need more business.
And I am happy to help you with your land. Yes, I am.
So there you go. Yep. Check him out. Even if you're not local, he might be able to do something through Google Maps and Earth and stuff for you. So
yeah, we can do some virtual
reach
stuff.
out no matter where you are, and this is your guy right here. And especially if you're here in Tennessee, if you want to buy properties and stuff, and you're close enough, he will actually go look at those properties for you. I think that's a good a good option for you guys.
Yeah, happy to help.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. And you can come at SRF. You will see some of the work that he's done here as well. And there's evidence of success of the installs he's done. You'll see them here. So we'll see you guys soon. Self-Reliance Festival coming up in April here. selfreliancefestival.com. You can get all the information and tickets. And then homesteadapprentice.com also, if you're interested in coming out for that. Definitely check that out. And we've got Instagram, Facebook, locals, everything, TikTok for all of those, and YouTube. So check it out. Thank you guys, and we will see you next time.